Welcome everyone. Today it is the 4th of April and I'm going to talk about security and international relations again. This week Nanaia Mahuta is traveling to Brussels and she's going to talk at the Foreign Ministers Summit of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Now, in relation to this visit, an expert, Robert Patman, gave an interview to Radio New Zealand and he expressed that NATO and NATO partnership, which is different than membership to NATO, is actually a good solution for New Zealand because it provides the flexibility what a multilateral treaty can offer. Now, in terms of security relations, last week we discussed how AUKUS changed the agenda and changed the view and landscape for New Zealand. Now, when it comes to NATO, I agree with Robert Patman only in one condition. If we were still in 2012, yes, NATO would be ideal for us. But at the moment, NATO practically has the similar associations what AUKUS has. Why am I saying this? Well, in NATO, the leading superpower is the United States. Within NATO, the first use of nuclear weapons principle is still there. So, all the other nuclear powers, mainly China and Russia, they do not use nuclear weapons as a first strike. They just use them as retaliation. Now, but NATO forces vindicate the right to use it first. So actually it is the same as AUKUS. Therefore, all association with NATO is practically brings about the same problems what AUKUS does. There is only one aspect in which NATO is better, because NATO has more members. It's rather multilateral than AUKUS, which has only 3 members, and NATO has 29. So the leading superpower cannot easily manipulate the proceedings within NATO, unlike AUKUS or earlier ANZUS, the Australia, New Zealand, United States cooperation. Therefore, NATO is not much better than AUKUS. This minimal aspect of multilateralism, that's it. Otherwise, I would prefer New Zealand to remain neutral, but that's another question. Now, like I said, if we were in 2012, that would be a good time, and in that case we would agree with Robert Patman. I mean, I would agree with him, but we are not there, and I will show you what was the agenda in 2012. Okay, you can see the PowerPoint here. 2012 was practically the pinnacle of the US-Russia relations. We have to remember that in 2008 Russia invaded Georgia, and despite of this fact, in 2009 Obama announced the Russia reset agenda. He approached Putin and they together made significant progress. In 2010 the United States even agreed Russia's accession to the WTO, the World Trade Organization. In 2011 NATO was asked by the United Nations to perform an intervention in Libya according to the responsibility to protect R2P rules. Now, what is this? When a country's leadership government cannot secure their citizens, and because actually insurgencies occurred in Libya and the government forces attacked the population, therefore they didn't fulfill their responsibility to protect their civilians. So the United Nations could ask military forces, let it be NATO, to intervene to protect the civilians in Libya. Now, this was agreed by Russia as well, and this was the period when, after the end of the Cold War, NATO might have found its new designation, its new identity as a cooperation with the United Nations. So in 2012, the lead up to 2012 was pretty good. That's when New Zealand joined as a global partner to NATO. In 2011, the US and Russia even signed the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, and it was a significant milestone after 2008. So 2012, the United States and Russia were negotiating how to handle chemical weapons in Syria. So in 2012, yeah, it was a good time to join as a partner to NATO. That's fine, yeah. But after 2012, the world has changed radically. Actually, it wasn't Ukraine that changed it. In 2013, relations were already worsening. And in this video, I will not tell you what I think, what was the cause, but still, we have to bear in mind that until 2012, Russia and the United States was getting closer. Now we can see that relations are not that good at all, not at all. I would say a new arms reduction treaty in 2023 would be quite impossible between Russia and the United States. Now, concerning this situation today, it's important that Nanaia Mahuta traveled to visit the NATO summit. Okay. What is my worry concerning international relations today? Okay, here we have to switch in Sanna Marin's visit last year. She visited New Zealand in November 2022. And to be fair, after Jacinda Ardern, then Prime Minister, and Sanna Marin, Finland's then Prime Minister, both of them are out of office now, held a press conference, the audience didn't really know what they had to talk about. Because what was the outcome? They were focusing on women in dire circumstances. Okay, for this reason I don't think they have to meet up. They decided to boost trade opportunities. Now this is practically the typical BS in press conferences, because Finland is part of the EU, and last year New Zealand just signed a trade deal with the EU. So outside that trade deal, Finland cannot even negotiate independent ways for trade, because they are within the EU customs border. So it's not true. Okay, so that was the necessary bullshit. Tackling climate change. Okay, I understand it. Deepening ties. In what exactly? Nobody knew. And commitment to democratic values. Now this one is actually relevant, because this is the only one that refers to the ongoing war between Russia and the Ukraine. Now, if we had seen the press conference with Ardern and Sanna Marin, it was quite awkward, because according to these announcements, it was not really clear why they had to meet up. Okay, I think I have a clue. And this clue comes from one of my former readings. Stuart Macmillan wrote a book, Neither Confirm Nor Deny, in 1987, about the dissolution of ANZUS, how the United States denounced its obligation within ANZUS towards New Zealand, because if they couldn't visit New Zealand's port, the alliance couldn't perform its duties. And in that book, Stuart Macmillan writes about possible role identities for New Zealand in case a nuclear warfare happened. Now, what was this role identity? New Zealand believed that because of the remoteness of the islands, New Zealand could serve as a storage for various libraries to sustain universal knowledge about humanities, science, whatever. Now, if we bear in mind that this kind of storage should be held in secure locations, this is where Finland might come into the picture. Again, unofficial information. I have a friend who visited me in 2018. He had his honeymoon here in New Zealand and Fiji, and his name had a monogram E.T. You will remember this, E.T. And E.T. Studied information technology, yes, but he also had a scholarship to Finland while he was attending university, and he was deeply impressed by Finland's construction technologies, because when there was a field covered by snow and there was only a small hut in the field, that small hut could still hide an elevator down to an underground swimming pool and sauna facilities. And he came to know that Finland was so fearful of a possible nuclear war that they did indeed build a lot of building sites underground. So Finland is very much aware of how to construct secure buildings. And if we bear in mind that actually data centers and knowledge centers might be held in those secured locations, it makes sense why Sanna Marin visited New Zealand. Okay, this is all just speculation, and unfortunately I can finish only with speculation here, but I will provide a link in the description to an ODT article which describes that the Department of the Prime Minister denied official information requests in early December last year, just right after Sanna Marin's visit. And the two might not be related directly, but the reason for denying the request was, one of them was, quoting, national security issues. Now, the journalist working for Radio New Zealand came to be aware of various information technology companies asking assistance from the New Zealand government about locating data centers in New Zealand. And it wasn't just one company, it was altogether 12. Among them we find Amazon and Google, for example. So these are not little players. These are big guys, and they started approaching the New Zealand government since March 2021, so earlier than the Ukraine war. But these visits, I assume, became more frequent after the war in Ukraine started. Now, if business leaders want to establish data centers in New Zealand, well, we have to assume that they have much more information about the possible outcome of the war, and establishing a data center is a long-term project, so they might expect the war to last much longer than we see at this moment. This is the bad news, but I believe I could provide you some relevant information about international security problems what we face in 2023. Hopefully I prove to be wrong. That's the only positive I can tell at this time. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.